Wayne Forte, the company's Entourage Talent Associates. Um, Background, my title, I'm president of the company, but for all practical purposes, I don't use the title. So it's my company. I have people that I work with here. There's about 6 of us. Background on the company, it's about 13 years old. Got about 25 clients. They range from new artists that are playing small clubs to artists that play arenas and theaters and amphitheaters and whatnot around the world. My background, I've been in the business for, I don't want to say on tape, I guess, but over 30 years, let's say. And this is my second company. I had an agency before this that I was a partner in, and before that I worked for 2 or 3 different agencies. What Entourage Talent and I particularly are interested in doing is developing clients, developing artists, developing their careers, furthering their careers, and maintaining their careers when they get to that point. I have a lot of clients that have been with me for 15, 20 years, and my main purpose in being involved with them right now is to maintain their career. Keep it at least where it is or greater. It's difficult, for people that look at the industry, they know, or look at the, whatever, entertainment industry in general, you see people going up and down in their careers. I don't want to have clients, going up and down like a wave. I try to maintain them to a certain level. The younger clients, you want to build up to that level or greater. So that's mainly what we're interested in doing. I started music when I was a kid. I played guitar very badly, and I eventually gave it up and went away to college. And while I was in college, I got involved in the concert committee on campus. I ended up running the concerts and most of the activities on campus. And I just segued from that into the industry quite by accident. I was asked if I wanted to look at a position in New York. I was going to school out of New York. I was in the South at the time. I'm from New York originally. And they asked if I was interested in a position in New York in the agency business. And at the time, I really wasn't. I was going to go do something else in grad school. And I came up and had a meeting and decided to take a flyer and do it for a year or two. And it was a long time ago. And I started in that small agency that I worked at for about a year. I worked there. I worked in a management company for about 6 months. And then I went back into a major agency. Worked there for 3 or 4 years. Became another agency through merger. And then I left there and worked at another small agency for a while. And following that, I went to William Morris Agency. I was there for 4 years. Became head of the music department. And one of the senior agents and I left and opened an agency called International Talent Group, which I was a partner in for 12 and a half years. Started off with 16 acts, and when I left, we had about 75 clients. We were doing major business, throughout the world. I was doing a lot of business. Actually, I was doing most of the overseas business, but we were doing quite a bit. Probably 50% of our business was overseas. 50% was domestic. I left there and pared down, took 6 clients with me and opened a smaller operation, which is Entourage Talent. And I've been doing this for about 13 years as this company. Some people do refer to us as the middleman, but basically we represent the artists for negotiations of live work. We're really like employment agents, really. We seek employment for our clients, more or less. We negotiate deals for them to be paid to do what they do, their job, so to speak, which is to play music or sing. We work between the manager, the artist, the record labels a lot, and the promoter. So we're kind of in the middle. We speak to email, fax, promoters, venues, concert halls, theaters, clubs, or whatever, constantly. It used to be primarily phone work, and now with the advent of email, obviously, there's a lot of stuff that's done on email. For me, it's about 50%. For some people in the business, it could be as much as 75% on email. I personally like the phone myself because it's more of a personal conversation as opposed to just a written word. And we solicit work for our clients. For lack of a better term, we try to sell our client services to people. We fill situations when they're looking for something. They may call us and say, we're looking for either your client or an artist to fill in this spot on a major show or something like that. So it basically is like a salesperson. It's a cross between a salesperson and an employment agent. I mean, I hate to break it down to the unattractive and non-sexy points, but that's what it is, frankly. When promoters started out years and years and years ago, they really started out, a lot of them started out with venues. They had something, like not all of them, but a lot of them. I mean, even the major promoters today that are major players in the business, when you go back, 30 years or 40 years ago, they owned a club. That was most of them, not all of them, but they owned the club. The guy in Philadelphia owned one club. The guy in Boston owned that club. The guy in Chicago owned this club. They all started, or most of them again, started in those clubs. There were guys that were just the entrepreneurial promoter guys who just, popped up. There were very few of those, though. Some of the guys that were the big promoters when I first started in the business were affiliated with a building, like Madison Square Garden or actually Madison Square Garden. Some of them didn't exist in those days, but there were buildings in Chicago. The stadium was called in Chicago, which no longer exists. There was a guy that was a buyer for that venue. So today, what's happened is the promoters, now guys will pop up and say, I'm a promoter. What's your venue? Well, I don't have one. I can get whatever. I can get this club. I can get this theater. I can get this arena. Still, the major promoters and major players that started 35, 40 years ago that own clubs then are now major promoters in the major cities. A lot of them affiliated with Live Nation because they bought out a lot of the big promoters. They own clubs today again. They own theaters. And they own amphitheaters, or at least the company does. They don't particularly directly. So really it's gone back to a scenario where the promoters, not all of them, but the major guys are affiliated with buildings because in today's world, the profit centers are owning the real estate, as they say. It's not booking the client or booking the artist, rather. It's the parking and the drinks and the rent and the facility fees is where they make their profit. The rest of it's just fluff. So it's kind of getting away from the entertainment side of it, or the live particular artist side of it, and it's more geared towards whatever entertainment, as long as we get people in the building. But that's a business thing. There's still a lot of young promoters around that are not affiliated with buildings, which is what you're getting at. Dealing with them is different because they have to find a facility. It's a little bit more difficult. They may be interested in an act, but they may not have a facility on the day that we need it. Somebody else may have it, or somebody might have an exclusive on it. So there's a lot of competition going on out there. So dealing and calling up and making a booking isn't as simple as maybe I made it seem like 10 minutes ago. It's actually quite a chess game, as somebody once said to me. None of my tours are funded by tour support. None of my artists that I can think of these days. And years and years ago, maybe it was different. Today, not so much. For me, there are other agencies that have clients that labels fund and put the cash out. Not for me. It's all driven from the artist side. What was the other second?
So the artist is taking the risk.
Artist is totally taking the risk.
Putting all the expenses out there, and then they also have, in turn, the profit to make from that.
The potential profit.
Potential.
Yeah. Potential. The reality is that in today's world, it goes in steps. There's a point at which the artist is on the road making no money, really. There's no profit. They're barely paying it off just to be out there. Then they get to a point where they start to make a little bit of profit. They kind of turn the corner a little bit. Then what ends up happening is you step it up a little bit. They end up 9 times out of 10 adding another crew member or adding another instrument to the band, or they can't drive around that van anymore because it broke down 25 times, so they either got to buy a new van or start trying maybe to go on a bus. So the costs end up going up a little bit. So then they end up in that second level where they're breaking even again, even though they're making a little bit more money. So in reality, although people look and say, oh my God, they grossed $10,000, they made a fortune. They grossed $10,000, it barely paid off. They grossed $10,000, the venue's got to get paid, the promoter's got to make something. The cost of the show is this, and the band makes what? $1,000, $2,000? That's not profit. It costs some of these artists, between $15,000 and $25,000 a week to be on the road. That's a small act. I mean, in today's world, if an act, is on the road doing 5 days a week and, doing 2 or 3 months at a go, and they've got, 4 or 5 guys in the band and a couple of crew guys and carrying equipment around, they got a van, $15,000, $25,000 a week overheads. Not ridiculous. That's what it costs, especially with the price of gas. So when you break that down, you feel like they're going to make $5,000 a night just to break even. Like, for instance, the AFM has two standardized agreements they use. Actually, it's one agreement, but it's two, I guess, two versions for live entertainment. They have the 3-year agreement and they have a 5-year agreement. Their agreements really date back to probably the 30s and 40s. I mean, like they're the big band era agreements. So a lot of the stuff in them actually isn't irrelevant to what we do, really. But for AFM clients, we'll use the standardized agreement. The 3-year agreement, and that's off the top of my head, the terms are, they start at about 10% and for commission, and 10% of the artist earnings, and they go as high as 15, I believe. They break it down according to types of engagements. And again, it goes back to the old days. They have what they call the one-nighters, and they have the residency engagements, right? And that was back to the big band days when they played weeklies. And so they have a rate based on that for commissions, which again doesn't apply really to our business. But you have to use their form for an AFM client. So then you just have to go through and you have to adjust everything. They also allow you to take a commission up to 25%, I believe, if you're acting as in a managerial capacity as an agent, which means you're not necessarily the manager, but there isn't anybody, so you're doing a lot of the work. So they allow to take 15 as the agent, I believe, and 10 extra as in a managerial capacity. And there are people in the industry that do that. We don't at this particular point in time, anyway. And then they have their 5-year agreement, which is the same basic terms, except it has 5 years instead of 3 years. As far as a regular, non-AFM agreement goes, it's really open to negotiation. I tend to go with the 5-year agreement for new artists for this company, strictly because there's a lot of time that you have to put in to develop a career and the time, and it takes, in today's world with the release of product being what it is. I mean, years ago, in the 60s and early 70s, people were releasing products every 9 months or every year. Now they release a product every 3 years. So in 5 years, you're lucky if you get 2 albums. And you can't build a career on one record. So I go with the 5. And I tailored it after the AFM agreement, basically, and said, it's 5 years, basic terms, and commission rates depend on the type of artist it is. And, if it's a new established artist or a new artist or whether it's an established artist, et cetera. And the other terms, I mean, there's pages of legal boilerplate, basically. There's really not much else. It's the territory, which I tend to go worldwide with most of my clients. But you can go whatever, U.S. and Canada, Europe, South America. I have a few clients that represent everywhere but Europe or everywhere but the U.K., and a lot of them worldwide. So there's the territory, there's the commission rate, there's the length of time. And those are your basic points. And then after that, it's all up in the air. Is it just live? Is it TV, as we discussed a little while ago? Is it film and television? Is it commercials? Is it merchandise? I'm not bouncing it back, but it depends on what they're looking for. Like some people, all they want is somebody to book at dates for them. There's a lot of artists and managers out there that believe that we just have to get out there and work and it's going to all happen. Well, that's not the case because there's plenty of people doing the same thing. So if they're looking, if they're looking for a guy just to book dates, okay, I call that a real booking agent or booker. Okay, that's one type of guy. If they're looking for somebody to help establish and create a career path for them, that's another guy. If they're looking for somebody to generate lots of income, it could be a different guy. It could be a guy or person that's just interested in the money and that's it. Don't care what happens with the career. Let's just try to get as much money as we can. So maybe those are the 3 criteria, okay, that they need to focus on and decide which they want. If they want a little bit of all of it, I mean that's really a well-rounded kind of thing. That's fine. If they want one or the other, then they got to talk to the agent and find out where they're at. When I meet with people and all they want is to book dates, I'm not interested. I just tell them to go somewhere else. I'm not interested in that. I don't want to just sit on the phone all day booking dates. It's like ordering pizza. Boom, I got one here. I got one pepperoni. I got one with this. It's like that's all it is. That's literally all it is. Only you're selling it as opposed to just having it delivered. I want to get in there, roll up my sleeves, get involved in what's going on, spend a lot of time, and help develop something. So I'm looking for somebody to come in to me and say, here's what we think we can do. We're interested in the long-term commitment. We're interested in developing, and and I'll give them that back. So I've had meetings with people that they're not interested in what I am, and that's fine. Uh, but I think those are the key things. They just got to decide whether what's the most important issue. Just working, developing a real career, just the money. Think about it seriously. It's not all the glory it looks like it is. It can be fun, but it's a lot of work. If you want to do it right. It is interesting. Um, you need to want to be able to deal with people. You need to be able to be told no. You need to be able to accept it. No. You need to be You have to be able to accept being turned down a lot, especially when you start off. And some people can't accept that. That becomes like defeat to them. I've seen people, women, guys, go through that at the beginning, and it's difficult. You need to be able to feel like you're not succeeding to succeed. You need to be able to run as fast as you can just to stand still. Because if you stand still, you'll fall behind. That's the way the business is. It's just constantly going. It never stops. We're dealing in November and December already. Summer's almost over. I had one day off this summer, and I worked from home. I don't get a summer vacation. I mean, I run a business, so it's a little bit different than the regular guy with a job even, okay? I try to take time off, but I can't because I'm constantly working 4, 5, 6 months ahead of myself. But at the same time, I'm dealing with today because I've got shows going on, I've got contracts, I've got deposits, I've got things I got to follow up on promotions and things like that. And then I'm also booking, October, November, and December. And I'm talking to people about April and May next year. And I'm meeting with clients about what they're going to do next summer and next fall. So you're constantly working way ahead of yourself. I always like to say, like, the time goes by and you just don't know where it goes. The next thing you know, you turn around, it's 10 years later. If you're really into it, that's what happens. You don't even notice. I mean, I don't notice that I haven't taken a real vacation in I don't know how long, that I've actually gone away, sat on a beach, and did nothing but read a book for 5 days, for 6 days. I can't tell you the last time I did that. But it's a career passion. Not everybody does that in this business. There are people that go in, they punch the clock, they get in at 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock, whatever it is, they leave at 6, they book their dates, they leave. They're booking agents. I guess that's what you're kind of asking. They're booking agents. I'm not a booking agent. Sometimes I'll just say to them, I want your best offer. And if they give it to me, then I don't have to negotiate. If they give it to me. 9 times out of 10, they don't give it to you. Then you negotiate. But I would just say 99% of the time I'm negotiating, always, on something. It's always something, because that's my job. It's never good enough. It can always be better. If I don't think that, I'm out of business. So are my clients. It can always be better. The thing is that promoters like the status quo. A lot of agents like the status quo, too. A lot of acts like status quo. I don't like the status quo. The status quo means death to me. It's like status quo is, sitting here, doing what you're doing, and be happy exactly with what you got. Well, it's never going to stay the same. It's like I said before. One of the things about this industry is you got to run as fast as you can just to stand still. If you stand still, you fall behind. So I feel like it can always be better. If the act did 1,000 people, they should do 1,500 next time. If the offer was 10 grand, it should be 15 grand. Why shouldn't it be? I mean, there's no reason. The only way anybody, and I use this with promoters all the time, is I said, if you work for a company and you made $10,000 a year for 50 years, would you be happy? No. Would you want a raise every year? Yes. Fine. So does my client. They should get a raise every time they work. Because they're working. They're working. That's what they do for a living. They play music. They should always get a raise. And if I can't get them a raise, I should get a new agent. That's my philosophy.